Hey guys, it's ExandShadow, and welcome back to Let's Play Devil Survivor Overclocked. In the last part, we saved Taru for the first of many times, and in this part we are going to be finishing up the rest of day 1. Now, as I said before, whenever you see an event with Yuzu going on, you can generally ignore it, and, things will be fine, and in this case, this event with Jin does foreshadow some events going on with him, but it's not necessary to see this event either, it'll basically happen off-screen if you miss it. So, in these two cases, where this event with Yuzu, we have enough time to see it anyway, it's just a comic relief piece, you don't really need to. But the event with Jin could be missed too, so, again, you could skip these if you want to, but, you might just want to listen to the dialogue. I want to listen to the dialogue because it's entertaining. I haven't really mentioned this before, but you can actually skip time in this game. You don't have to go to a character event in order to move the clock forward by half an hour. If you press the Y button on the map screen, you'll bring up a little thing which will allow you to move the clock forward to a certain point. There are particular mandatory events during the day, like, a fight against a boss or a scheduled fight that just doesn't really have too much to do with the plot, but there are a certain number of mandatory events each day that you have to go to. But other than that, when you're just stuck choosing between a bunch of different character events and stuff like that, you can choose to go to none of them just by pressing the Y button and scrolling through the time clock. I don't recommend doing that at all. Though, I don't, it's not a good idea, mostly because, as you probably would have expected, you've got a pretty tight time schedule in order to get all of the events you need during this game. If you miss one event, you could potentially screw yourself out of one or possibly several endings. So I don't ever recommend skipping time in this game, even if you're just listening to character development. You never know when one of your choices might have an impact later on in the story, so it's never really a good idea, especially on your first playthrough, to skip time, It might, if you plan on using it, the only way I'd recommend using it is if you save the game before you use it, and then move forward in 30-minute intervals to see what events disappear and what events don't disappear. It's just like, oh, okay, I've got an event with Yuzu and I've got an event with Atsuro. You fast forward through the day using the time skip feature to see which one of these events disappears and when, and so you can plan out your time, your event order for that day. I could possibly understand doing it that way, but for the most part, I just don't generally recommend doing that. Now, as to what's actually going on screen, you might notice that things are moving quite a bit faster than normal. That's because this battle took me for fucking ever, and it's not all that interesting, so I decided to speed it up by about twice as fast. The only new thing that happens in this fight is that in those little glowy boxes there are out-of-control comps, and we'll find out more about that later. But when it comes to a gameplay sense, what makes those squares different is that they're basically enemy spawn points. As long as they're still glowing there, they will continue to endlessly spawn enemies over and over until you pick it up, or if you manage to defeat all the enemies on the screen already, and then, the characters will say, we'll pick up that comp later, basically meaning that they have enough time, on their own to do it, and then it'll just happen off screen. Thankfully, however, the spawn rates for all of these portals are relatively low. Like here, I go through this entire fight with only one demon spawning out of that portal, which, is actually pretty good. In a lot of games like these, the portals will spawn multiple demons really, really fast. You've probably been in that point where you can't keep up with the game because it's spawning enemies so fast that you can't defeat them all. This game isn't like that. It won't overwhelm you, or at least at this point. It's not really so much that the portals spawn enemies really quickly. It's just that mostly in later situations you'll come into points where there's like 4 or 5 of them on one map, so it's more about having a lot of enemies spawn in short spurts as opposed to one enemy spawning every every second. You get like 5 enemies every minute. It's more like that, if that makes any sense. So, I still recommend whenever you come to a battle like this to take care aware of the spawn points as fast as possible. You know, they should always be your first priority in something like this, especially, you know, tactical RPG, because those enemies are going to be spawning out with full health, which, you know, sucks. So that's my general recommendation, but the only thing that makes it hard in this case is that, well, you can't send any of the 3 guys. I recommend Atsuro because for some reason Atsuro is always ahead on XP during this early point of the game, so, you know, that's why I send him out to get that one. But getting to the second spawn point in this particular map is a little bit more difficult than you'd think it would be because, well, it just moves. It's just covered with enemies, as you can see. I don't think what will make this a little bit easier if you want to get to that portal as fast as possible is getting a Moshavu. A Moshavu demon is I think of the avian race, and the avian race gives you the ability Flight, which means that as long as that demon is in your party, you will not only have 1 move added to your character, so the main character in Atsuro will now have 5 move, Yuzu will now have 4. As soon as that demon dies, or if you unsummon it, you will go back down, and you'll go back down to 4 or 3 respectively. But not only do you get an added move space, but the Flight ability also gives you the ability to teleport wherever you're going. So you can move past enemies, you can move past certain environmental obstacles. Flight is one of the best movement abilities in the game, especially if you team it up with a Wilder's Devil Speed. So, you know, you could use a Wyra plus Moshavu, and then I'd recommend sending Yuzu, obviously, because she makes the most out of that added movement. But you send Yuzu all the way over to the other side, you can take care of that portal in no time. I didn't make a Moshavu by this point in the game because my party was working relatively well for me at this point. But, you know, if you happen to have one, you know, whether through fusion or through the auction, that is a good way to take care of that demon portal as fast as possible. So that's a relatively decent strategy if you don't want to go through the brute force method I used in order to get past all of these demons, you know. Getting teams with a lot of Zeo skills would also be handy here because, yeah, there's a lot of Bilwisses here, and those guys take a lot of punishment if you're not pounding them with super effective moves. And, you know, that's always really bugged me. It's just like I was right there to getting Atsuro at that portal, but no, the demon had to spawn right as soon as I got there. It was just, ugh. These battles will start getting longer and longer. Like this battle took about 12 minutes when I was playing the game, so I cut it down to 6 by speeding up some stuff. But I won't be speeding up too many battles throughout the course of this playthrough. Really, only ones where we're covering the same ground we've already been there before. Boss battles, important event battles, you know, any time we're encountering real new territory, I'll run them at normal speed. But seeing as these boss fights can get relatively long some of the time, you know, I will be speeding them up. So if that bothers you, I'm sorry, but, you know, it's just really the most reliable way to take care of this sort of stuff, so, yeah. Overall, it's not a particularly challenging fight, but it's definitely an annoying one, so plan appropriately before you go in there, you know. Saving, checking out what the fight's going to be like, and then resetting to prepare your team is always a good strategy for these sort of things, so.
Now, how could demons have come out of a comp on their own?
Well, maybe somebody just pressed the demon summon button over and over again, and then it got stuck, you know. If the demon summon button's on the R button, then you're screwed, because I've got my old DS Lite, the R button got stuck for so long, it basically wouldn't get up. Although if you use a toothbrush to get in there, you can usually shake whatever crap's in there, getting it to get stuck. Although I've noticed that L and R buttons tend to be the parts of any model of the DS, normal or 3D.
There's no telling what's on the other side.
That gets broken first, but, you know, that might just be because it's exposed, or it might just be because they're designed badly. Fuck if I know which one's it.
What's in those comps that lets them summon demons?
Oh, Yuzu.
Why?
You just pressed out Zoro's exposition button,
can you
didn't?
explain this in regular
damn it.
words?
Okay, well, Atsuro's going to ramble on about this, so I might as well explain it in my own words. Basically, the demon summoning program on the comp doesn't actually really do a whole lot. It basically just taps into a server somewhere far away. We don't know where it is at this point in the game. And, you know, the server is the one doing all of the actual devil summoning, surviving, whatever. But even if you say that you understand what it is, Yuzu doesn't, so yeah, but thou must, you will take this exposition and you will like it. So yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the exposition at points, you know, especially once you've played through the game as many times as I have, you know, it's like, I just want to scream, I already know how all this works, you know, I already know how the devil summoning program works in detail because I played the game so many times, but, you know, it's just part of this sort of storytelling is that even if you already know all this stuff, you can't expect the characters to, so you gotta figure out certain things as they do. Although I'm mostly used to that sort of thing because I'm a big fan of the murder mystery genre, and I will reread or rewatch certain stuff I've seen before, so you know, it's just a matter of, okay, I already know this stuff, you gotta watch the people go through the same leads in the same order. It's just one of those things that you have to suffer through if you like this sort of plot sort of thing, and thankfully I do, so it doesn't really bother me too much, but you know, it's just at some point this is just exposition, you know, it's explaining how the program works in a vague enough detail so that, you know, we can generally understand it without going into the coding thing or anything, but yeah. So anyway, every single day in Devil Survivor will always end around 6 o'clock, 6, 7 o'clock, or well, 1900 hours, according to this game's clock, because military time is cool? Question mark? But each day will always end with Yuzu and Atsuro talking about what happened over the course of the day. And you'll also generally get a recap of what happened over the day, you know, choices you made. It's generally a very good time for you to understand when you made certain decisions and stuff like that. If you are really invested in getting, you know, the best ending on your first try, something I would actually recommend doing is that you've only got 3 save files, so you can't take advantage of this too much, but I would recommend keeping 1 save file for the start of one day. So, you know, you make a save file at the beginning of day 1, you know, you copy that save file over to the second file, you know, so you got day 1 save, and then you've got another day 1 save. You keep one of the day 1 saves at the beginning of day 1, you don't touch it, and then you use the other save and you save over as you progress through the day, you know, and if you figure that you messed up at some point, you can go back to the early day 1 save and redo some stuff, which is annoying, but you know, at least you can redo some things like that. You know, but it's kind of like making lots and lots of save files in some other RPGs, you know, because some RPGs will let you make like 100 different save files, which is a Let's Player's wet dream, I'm going to tell you that, because if you make a new save file every time you save, then no matter where you messed up, you can just go to that previous save and take advantage of that. But when you've got a game like this with only 3, you can't really take advantage of that too much. But if you are going to use all 3 different save files, I would recommend having 1 save file that you constantly update, you know, as you play through the game, 1 save file at the beginning of the day that you just started, and another save file at the beginning of the day before the day you just started, if you really want to make sure to avoid certain things, you know. There are some things that are, you know, long-reaching, you know, like a thing that you'll do in day 2 that does impact like day 5 where you can't undo that, but a lot of the choices you make will be not necessarily resolved, but will immediately impact the next day, and I can think of a couple of different situations where that happens right now, but I won't spoil them because, you know, plot, but you know, if you make a big mistake, usually going 1 day back will generally be enough to fix it. Although if you're following this guide, walkthrough, let's play, whatever the hell you want to call it, you know, you will be, I will be showing the necessary events and dialogue choices in order to unlock everything. So as long as you copy what I do exactly and don't make any mistake and don't deviate from what I say, then you should generally be fine. Although, again, I'm going to stress, if you're playing this game for the first time, I do recommend answering, you know, as honestly and as true to yourself as possible, because I feel like with a Shin Megami Tensei game, especially the first one you play, answering as honestly as you can does make the ending mean the most, you know? When you go, I already know how the Shin Megami Tensei system tends to work, so, you know, even when I answer as honestly as possible in, like, something like Shin Megami Tensei 4, I already generally know what ending I'm going to get. But when it's your first time playing a game like this, you know, answering as honestly as you can and you're not sure what to expect, you know, that's when the ending, what ending you get tends to have the most impact. So, yeah, that's why I recommend, you know, just answering as honestly as possible on their first time through. But, you know, second times through, when you're just trying to unlock all the different stuff, that's when you might want to take advantage of different save file abuse. But, you know, that's just me. So anyway, we sort of touched on this at the end of the day before, but at the end of every day you will be getting multiple emails from different characters that you meet throughout the day. At this point it's just Naoya, who will send you something occasionally, and you've got Yuzu, who talks in painful elite speak. Ugh, I hate people that talk like this on the internet. And you've also got Atsuro, and as you run into more characters, you will get emails from them too. The emails that you can send replies to the characters, you know, like here you could reply to Yuzu and you could reply to Atsuro. At this point your email replies don't mean an awful lot, but later on the email replies will actually have some impact on certain events, so, you know, keep that in mind when I say that certain replies are important. But anyway, next time we are going to start the second day. I'm ExandShadow, and I'll see you guys later.